Welcome back. So, Mrs. Benitier, you were talking about Nigeria and the journey so far. Let me put this to you. From the things, when Dr. Thompson was talking, he mentioned that something about the Tafawa Balewa, his stance at the UN. Intractable issues from 1960 till date. And it looks as if those issues have persisted. Does it mean that there is no way out of these issues?
Of course not. There's always a way out. It's given to humanity to find a way out. Human beings were designed that very way to always find solutions to certain problems. But like he said, I agree with all there's certain foundational issues that have happened in forming Nigeria that has to be addressed. To avoid those fundamentals can no longer happen. A generation must discuss it. There must be a generation to debate the issue of religion. There must be a generation to debate the issue of the constitution. There must be a generation to debate the issues of regions. We must address issues. For example, when some people say, oh, let us divide. I asked my fellow friends, I said, can you show me the line of the divide? The day I saw the Oduduwa map, someone was drawing it and added Edo State. I said, in which kingdom do you think an Edo man will bow to a Yoruba man? They too will divide and say, we want a Benin nation. When we finish Benin nation, Ijo will say, I want Ijo nation. So the fundamentals of building a society has not been addressed. Every nation must have her own debate of the nation they want. I don't care the fundamental foundation. It is what you now want. Somebody gave you a wrong foundation. You go back to the drawing board and say, what you drew for me, I don't think I like it. Do you have the audacity to draw a new drawing?
But the question is, Mr. Thompson, question is, are you seeing the error in the foundation? And then what are you seeing on the other side to want to go to?
Well, let's put on a happier note by saying that all the pains that Nigeria is going through will actually serve for the redemption of Africa.
I agree.
Because if you look across African states, the African child wakes up to a life of pain, poverty, wretchedness. The Nigerian child still has it much better off. We don't realize it yet. In 1968, Obafemi Awolowo said something. He said, it is incontestable that Nigeria is a creation of the British, and that on their surrender of power, they surrendered not only their creation, but they surrendered with it what he called centrifugal, a nation that had forces of its own disintegration. And in 1968, he said, it devolves on leadership to take care of those forces of disintegration, one. Number two, preserve a Nigerian inheritance. And then number three, make the Nigerian peoples free, forward-looking, and prosperous. So the truth about this is that we were set up like that. You see, the challenge is that Nigeria was created deliberately to fail. It's failure engineering. We were created to be in a permanent state of chaos. A dynamic tension was created by masters of the game who had been doing it for 600 and something years. They bought our territories for about 865,000 pounds in the year 1900. 60 years later, they have not recovered their profit. And then you are claiming you want independence. How are they going to recover their profit if you are allowed to go free indeed? So they created something that's very difficult to rule. And the truth is this, is that the religious divide, the divide and rule policy, and all the centrifugal forces that Awolowo spoke about, Obafemi Awolowo spoke about forces that tend to tear us apart, they can be addressed when we listen to Tafawa Balewa. Remember what Nnamdi Azikiwe said, let us forget our differences. And the Premier of the Northern Region said, no, let's not forget our differences. Let us understand our differences. So, in fact, if we look at the kind of equation of failure, you know, that was set for Nigeria, we have tried to have survived till date. And Africa will profit from it when we now apply eternal truths, which, like they have already pointed out to us, is that, I mean, there are some basics every human being requires to be happy. If Tafawa Balewa could recognize that, I have what I describe it as is that if we look at God in his office as creator, before you are a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, or anything, God created you. So we have a level playing field on which we can build our nation and reverse engineer all the chaos that was designed to be a part of our national life. But you see, to be persuaded to do it, we are like a train moving on a track, a locomotive. It's not easy for a train to make a U-turn. We are fortunate that whatever the British laid for us in our foundation, we are getting to the end of the tracks now. And the architecture of thought it takes to see these things. Look, unless you really go back and study those liberating fathers of Nigeria and hear them, they foresaw all these things. I remember I was reading up something, one professor, C.O. Taiwo, was launching a book, and he said, look, in 1906, the gap in education between northern Nigeria and southern Nigeria was 50 years. By 1980, the gap had moved to 75 years. By 1990, he said it moved to 100 years. And then I remember the comment then was that if you allow it to go further, that the results will be too gruesome. Now, if somebody in 1980 could say to us that, look, education alone is enough to create the disparity in education alone is enough to cause mayhem and chaos that will destroy a nation in 1980. So it just means that there's an architecture of thought we need to adopt to realize that what is troubling Nigeria is not nuclear science. And that we can actually, look, we've made a lot of progress. We may not realize it. On behalf of African nations, we will find our redemption in resolving these issues. I was saying to him, I was in Kaduna last week with Almajiris. That's the single most important constituency in this country. Children who are like, have to beg for food on a daily basis. Amongst those children, you see the potentials. When we come to the place where we make the Almajiri the standard citizen of Nigeria and equip him to become a success, when we come to that place when we realize that he's also created by God, he's equal to your own children too, who are going to school in air-conditioned cars and things like that. When we begin to make provisions for the Almajiri to be able to make a choice in life and to enjoy the good things of life, Nigeria will move forward.
Captain, what do you see is the problem? Is it only a problem of leadership? Because the rest of Africa is looking up to us. And they have not acknowledged, in fact, some presidents have openly said, if Nigeria fails, Africa fails.
Well, that's true. That's true. If Africa was a family, Nigeria will easily fit into the role of the eldest sibling. So the others look up to him. And first and foremost, I want to, still speak to what Pastor said. You see, there are very, very simple solutions to these seemingly intractable problems. But where the challenge is vision. And vision is not just a pronounced word. Vision is even more spiritual than it is, do I say physical now? Men who are envisioned are people who sit down and plan from the future. People sit in Abuja and plan for the future. That's the difference between a visionary and, is he a politician now? People who plan from the future, and these people are not given to all the distractions that we could call material. They're not even seeking to they're not even seeking to be alive when the fruits begin to fall off the trees they are planting. They're not people that want to label bosses in their names because they had to squat in a state house for 4 years. They are people that are driven. A vision is more of a spiritual thing than it is a physical or political thing. People like Chief Obafemi Awolowo, people like Chief Nnamdi Azikiwe and Tafawa Balewa, when I was in secondary school, I read into them, particularly Chief Obafemi Awolowo. His was so vivid because on the day he died, we were preparing for school start, and we were unfortunate to be doing English language.